Welcome to this in-depth guide on navigating continued work under implied status while a new work permit is pending. In this video, we will clarify how maintenance of status works, why prior conditions still bind you, and how to communicate eligibility to employers. To begin, we will set expectations and define key terms. Then, we will move through diagrams, examples, and a practical checklist. Finally, we will end with a clear set of takeaways and a couple of knowledge checks along the way. First, we will define implied status and maintenance of status. Next, we will discuss why previous restrictions carry forward. Then, we will explore the special ambiguity in healthcare settings. After that, we will cover how to prove eligibility to employers. Additionally, we will discuss best practices. And finally, we will test your knowledge with a brief quiz. Before we proceed, please note that this content is educational information, not legal advice. Immigration laws and policies change, and interpretations can vary by jurisdiction and by individual case. You should consult a licensed immigration professional to receive advice tailored to your situation. With that established, we can now transition to defining implied status. Implied status, also called maintenance of status, is triggered when you apply for a new work permit before your current authorization expires. This legal mechanism allows you to continue working while a decision on the new application is pending. However, during this period, you are bound by the same conditions that applied to your previous authorization. This means your working hours, employer limitations, and any sector-based restrictions still fully apply. Now, let us deepen our understanding with a visual overview of how this decision flow works. This mind map places implied status at the center and branches into 4 areas. Conditions include working hours, employer-specific terms, and sector restrictions like healthcare. Proof highlights the documents needed: submission confirmation, a copy of the previous permit showing conditions, and any official message confirming eligibility to continue working under implied status. Risks include violating status, jeopardizing future applications, and potential employer liability. Actions emphasize staying within old limits, seeking legal advice where conditions are unclear, and documenting all communications. As we proceed, we will apply this framework to common misunderstandings. A frequent misconception is that filing for a more flexible permit, such as an open work permit, immediately removes old restrictions. That is incorrect. During implied status, you remain bound by the most restrictive conditions of your prior authorization. For example, limits on hours, employer specificity, self-employment bans, or sector prohibitions continue to apply until the new permit is formally issued. Violating these conditions can put your future applications at risk and may expose your employer to compliance issues. Now, let us examine a particularly tricky area: the healthcare sector. Healthcare restrictions on previous permits often relate to patient-facing duties or sensitive public health environments, which can require specific medical exams or background checks. However, even non-clinical roles might be considered within the healthcare sector if they are performed physically inside a hospital or clinic. Therefore, the risk remains until the new permit explicitly removes the healthcare restriction. In practice, if your previous document includes a healthcare prohibition, you should avoid working in settings that could reasonably be interpreted as healthcare, even for non-clinical duties, until your new permit arrives. Next, we will visualize the timing of key milestones. This timeline shows a recommended window leading up to the expiry date, emphasizing that the new application must be submitted before the original authorization expires. On the expiry date, the original document lapses, but implied status begins if the application was timely. From that day until a decision is made, you may continue working only under the previous conditions. At the decision point, if a new permit is issued, any new conditions then apply. If the application is refused, you must stop working immediately. Now let us turn to the practical side of proving eligibility to employers. To satisfy employer inquiries, first provide the submission confirmation showing you filed the new application before your current authorization expired. Second, share a copy of your previous authorization document so HR can see the conditions that still apply. Third, include any official communication from the immigration authority confirming your ability to continue working under implied status. Fourth, provide a concise written summary that connects these documents in plain language. If any condition is ambiguous, especially related to sector restrictions like healthcare, you should halt the questionable duties and consult a qualified immigration professional before proceeding. Next, we will consolidate this into a quick reference table. This table provides an employer-facing document pack The submission confirmation demonstrates timely filing, and you should highlight the timestamp and application number. The previous authorization copy shows the conditions that remain binding during implied status. Annotating the relevant lines improves clarity. The authority communication confirms your right to continue working. Quote the exact sentence about maintenance of status. Finally, a brief cover note ties everything together using numbered references and plain language. With the documentation strategy clear, let us test comprehension with a quick quiz. Question: if you applied for a new work permit before your current authorization expired, can you change your working conditions during implied status? Options: A. Yes, because you filed for a more flexible permit. B. No, you must follow the exact conditions of your previous authorization until the new permit is issued. Sometimes, only if your employer agrees in writing. D. Only if you are working remotely. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is no. You must follow the exact conditions of your previous authorization until the new permit is issued. Implied status preserves existing conditions. Filing for a more flexible permit does not change your conditions until the new permit is actually granted. Question: your previous permit prohibits work in healthcare settings. You are offered a non-clinical research role physically inside a hospital. During implied status, is this safe? Options: A. Yes, the role is non-clinical, so it is allowed. B. No, the setting may still fall under the healthcare restriction until the new permit explicitly removes it. C. Yes, if you avoid patient contact. D. Only if your employer provides extra safety training. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is no. The setting may still fall under the healthcare restriction until the new permit explicitly removes it. Even if the duties are non-clinical, the physical environment can trigger the restriction, so continuing in that setting under implied status is risky. As a quick reference, implied status requires that you applied before your current authorization expired, and that you continue under the old conditions. Both your role and your physical setting must comply with prior restrictions. If anything is unclear, you should pause and obtain professional advice. Maintain an organized evidence pack for HR, including the submission confirmation, prior permit, authority message, and a cover note. Document all communications and decisions. Next, we will reinforce this guidance with another visual perspective. This decision flow distills the critical path. If you did not apply before your permit expired, you must stop working. If you did apply in time, implied status is active, and you must follow the most restrictive conditions on your previous permit. That includes limits on hours, employer specificity, sector bans such as healthcare, and prohibitions on self-employment. You remain under those conditions until a decision is issued. Once the decision arrives and a new permit is granted, you then shift to whatever conditions are on that new document. Now, let us solidify the most important takeaways. These are the critical takeaways. Apply before your current authorization expires to benefit from implied status. During implied status, the old conditions continue to govern, and the most restrictive rule applies. Healthcare environments are particularly risky, even for non-clinical roles. Provide employers with a clear proof pack, including the submission confirmation, prior permit, and authority communication. When in doubt, pause and get professional immigration advice. Next, we will summarize the entire lesson. In summary, implied status is a legal bridge that maintains your ability to work while your new application is pending, but it is not a shortcut to new freedoms. Until the new permit is physically issued, your prior conditions continue to apply. Your physical setting can matter as much as your role, especially regarding healthcare restrictions. Clear communication with employers and careful documentation reduce compliance risks. As we conclude, we have one final call to action. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you, please like, share, and subscribe. In the comments, tell us what tricky scenarios or case studies you want us to break down next. Your feedback shapes future videos, and we appreciate your engagement.